have been well trained.
No.
You don't have to carry a sword to be powerful.
I won't fail you.
Or do not.
I'm not afraid.
There is no try.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the top 8 match here. We're going to start, of course, these are best of 3 90-minute rounds per the advanced structure rules. The top 8 and top 4 will be that way. The top 2 will have no time limit. We have Brian, who comes in at 8th seed on the left, playing Tarkin 7th Sister, and then Joe coming in 1st seed on the right, playing his new variation on the 7th Sister OTK. This is the Ciena Nightstister. And Elite 7th Sister. So lots of sisters. And gameplay has begun. We will start a round timer. Thank you very much. I apologize. I was a little late to get to this commentary. I'm going to put the round timer up here, and I know the deck lists weren't 100% correct on the original tournament bracket. We're going to get that corrected here pretty soon. It does take a couple more people to do this as well as we would like than we have here, but knowledge for the future, right? All right, so far Joe has already lightsaber pulled for an Ancient Saber. We've got the 7th Sister on the right-hand side already wielding that Ancient Saber. On the left, we've already rolled in Tarkin and 7th Sister. We have a resource, a focus on the ID9, focus on the Tarkin. We're going to focus Tarkin to the 2 discard side, which is an interesting choice. But you don't get top 8 for making poor decisions, so I'm looking forward to seeing what Brian's got here with this Tarkin 7th Sister deck. Joe's rolled in on his 7th Sister and ID9. Tarkin is discarding. It was a lightsaber pull and one other, so that is the end of lightsaber pulls. Joe's going to go ahead and hit 7th Sister for 2 damage. Takes away the shield and gives us 1 damage there. Yes, that was Aftermath. Brian here going for the early discards, trying to get rid of some of Joe's tricks that he's got up his sleeve. Of course, we know that Joe has a workaround with some of those upgrades he's looking for, as long as he can get the resources to play Rise Again, getting those upgrades out of his discard pile onto 7th Sister. Joe's deck makes use of Ciena solely for the purpose of leadership, getting access to some of those red cards. The very little red in this deck. Aftermath, leadership, the best defense are a couple of examples of red events he has played, but you can see Joe's sitting on a full hand of blue, including, it looks like, Price of Failure. And he'll most likely hold on to that Price of Failure until absolutely, until the right moment. He has no qualms with using Nightstister's ability to help control his die, and or his opponent's die, and then using Price of Failure on a mostly dead Nightstister to get another activation after 7th. A reminder, we are at the top 8. This is a best of 3 match, so whoever wins whoever loses the first game gets the battlefield decision on the second game, and if it goes to a third, the same thing happens there as well. All right. We're moving into the next round. Very little damage swung. Both players building up. Joe putting down Maul's lightsaber. We've seen Maul's lightsaber be very excellent in getting those second rolls. And then also just those modifiers are crazy. Plenty of melee on Joe's side. What cards that the 7th Sister deck is weak against are not very popular in the meta right now. Or at least against some decks. Certainly haven't seen a lot of them here today. All right, rolling in the extra ID9 in there, rolling a melee. So we've got a grand total of 5 melee showing on Joe's side of the table. Brian's got a full hand of tricks.
I mean, I have food. I'm just not hungry. Liquid sustenance.
We can find out. We can find out who made that 7th Sister promo card. It looks like... Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. It's very nice looking card.
You pull it out and you're like, this is not a chicken tender. What is this thing? It's just like a big monster chicken tender. I haven't, but I'm running on.
All right, Joe pulling... Brian putting down the best defense, which gets rid of that ID9 Secret Droid, as well as the Ancient Saber. Oh, no. Now, we've seen Joe use Trust Your Instincts multiple times here today. Get that reroll and that extra card. Of course, he's looking for cards that will allow him to get this reactivation on 7th Sister. He hasn't activated Ciena in hopes that cards such as Trust Your Instinct will allow him to play leadership when he pulls it. And now Brian's going after Ciena, which seems like a smart play at this point in time, because Ciena is without Ciena on the table, then leadership doesn't become an option. And then after that, the only thing would be price of failuring onto the Nightstister. So that would probably be the best move that Brian can make at this point in time, is to target that direction. We'll see if he can pull off enough damage to do that. Discarding to re-roll. Getting Tarkin on a 2 focus and the 7th on a 1 disrupt. So the answer on the fan alt that Brian is spiffing over there of the Seventh Sister, it is Starkiller base. It is one of their promo cards, so you can check out John Gobet and his YouTube channel for some great Destiny content and commentary. And that is one of his promo cards that I believe he issues to his Patreon, so you can check that out. All right. Joe has gotten his dice to a position where he's got 4 melee damage showing on the table. Brian's not showing a whole lot of options. That 2 focus would have been good when there were more die in the pool, but Brian really needs to find some upgrades or some great control to get the upper hand here. He's holding onto a card that he seems to want to play, and let's see if we can figure out what it is. It is a blue card. That limits us down to about 30% of the card pool. He's using Tarkin's focus to get himself... Where are we going? Where are we going with this? I'll decide. There we go. No, well, okay. I believe that was the same side it was on. Just trying to decide if he wants to, if it's too early to price a failure or not. And he is going to go ahead and price a failure. Got rid of the Nightstister. He's going to get another activation after out of 7th. Of course, he's already activated 7th and lost the Secret Droid this turn, so not getting the extra advantage from the extra Secret Droid, but an extra activation ain't half bad. Joe hasn't seen an additional Secret Droid yet to place on Seventh Sister, so that in itself can pose a little bit of a challenge. Of course, wanting to price a failure Nightstister, since he's still hoping that leadership's going to come to his hand in the next turn or 2. Joe is sitting on a 99 Secret Droid. Discarding to reroll. All Saver running a modified 3. The Secret Droid, Shield on the 7th. And we're going to do 4 damage to Seventh Sister. Interesting. Oh, yeah, and roll him all Saber because he's hoping to get the modify that he can pair up with that black side. Totally get it. Question is he going to take it? Yep. And there goes Seventh Sister. Brian's Seventh Sister has now been defeated. And we are going to move into a game of Tarkin versus Seventh Sister and her droids. Joe wins his turn by putting down Force Illusion before the upkeep phase. Definitely want to keep Seventh Sister alive, and of course she hasn't faced any damage yet this turn. Replacing the Force Illusion with a 99. Knowing that Seventh Sister is not in any sort of pain at the moment, and he's also drawn into a leadership. So I imagine this turn we're going to see Seventh roll out, roll in that second ID9, and then leadership on Ciena, which will roll in a third ID9 all in. Roll in there, yep.
Cards in your hand randomly, events get discarded.
That was definitely a good use of Suppression Fire by Brian on the previous turn. I was trying to figure out what card that was, but now I see. All those die in the Seventh Sister pool on the right calls the 6 indirect damage to come to Joe, which he has spread across his characters, as you see.
I was like, oh, I'll take a resource.
As expected, that leadership came into play here. He's going to reactivate Seventh Sister, roll in yet another ID9 Secret Droid. That gives us 3 ID9s on the table. He's hoping to. He did not roll into a focus, but he ran to a roll into a discard. And that's the end of game 1. That was enough melee damage to get rid of Tarkin this turn. So players are going to reset. That game was over in 18 minutes. Players are going to reset into game 2 after they mulligan. Brian will get the choice on battlefield and shield placement. Well, at least not placement, but who gets the shields and who gets the battlefield for game 2. Here, that will begin momentarily.
No, it's cool. We'll still go with your back. You got it.
Yeah, so the reason you don't tell your opponent that is because I can mulligan knowing I'll go first.
That's fine.
I'm well aware of this. For future reference.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're a privilege.
I am.
You're one of them.
I'm one of the many.
You're one of the many.
We are the Borg.
The Borg.
I'm going to use the bathroom. All my cellular technology here.
I don't think the board.
No, I'm fine with anything. I can get a time slot.
Judge, I'm gonna go pee.
I need a time stop. These are like the situation. Going for the discard in theory is fine. I'm just gonna like play slow.
No, it didn't seem like you got any upgrades after the first.
Oh yeah.
I mean that's a huge thing. Look at that. If you get no upgrades, you can't do what the deck does. So.
His draws were ugly.
So.
You're just like a damn machine over here, though. What do you do? Play this 10 hours a day?
I put about 10 hours worth of video out a week. Yeah, it's the Hyperloop thing. So like,
no, I know. That's what I said. I said you look familiar. Like I said, I post your stuff in my group all the time. I'm pretty sure we've argued a few times.
Yeah, probably. It's human nature to argue. I actually like to argue. Not fight, but argue. So I like to have a good argumentative discussion. And then when people are crazy, I'm like, you suck. But for the most part, I stay away from that. Like, I want to have like logical discussions on like, I think that's a wrong play. All right, let's talk about it, right?
I've learned a lot. I mean, I'm learning a lot just standing up here watching. I watch tons of videos just so I can learn and this stuff. I mean, I'm not that good. I overachieved today.
It takes time. It's practice. Would you end up with?
I wound up 31st at 4-3. I told my wife if I would come out of here with 1 win today, I'll be happier the guy takes first. My goal is to get a patience, and hey, I got it. I was worried when I heard there were 75 people coming.
You guys need 2 minutes. 2 minutes extra.
Thank you. We should be fine. We're playing pretty fast, so.
All good. Thank you.
I went to a Nationals for Naruto. I used the bathroom every round because I was living on the joke the whole time. So every round, we had the top 16.
All right, we're back. Brian stepped away for a moment. But we are back here. I believe they held the clock for him if they didn't go to time, but they've both been playing pretty quick. Don't expect, even if they go to a third game, that this game will, that brief delay will cause them to need to add on the extra 2 minutes. Let's see. Is Brian thrilled with his hand at all? He's thinking. Brian is not thrilled with his hand at all and is mulliganing the entire. That's right, the entire hand. Looks like Joe kept 1 card. Both of them have very specific cards they're looking for in their opening hands.
I did go for the discard, and you still got the lightsaber. You got everything you wanted.
Well, you had to hit both the lightsaber bolt and the maul saber.
I'm not that lucky. Good luck, dude. I won't forget my shoes.
All right. So Brian has chosen to go with Joe's battlefield and take the shields. That's a nice early start to make sure Maul Saber doesn't generate any, can't use its power action. So good early play there. It's the same play we've seen from Joe this often is the bringing in the Ancient Lightsaber early on. Joe's already sitting on a Trust Your Instincts, which we know he likes to play to get those rerolls and the extra draw, trying to draw into hopefully leadership early on, then Price of Failure eventually. It looks like Joe's sitting on an Aftermath and a leadership and an ID9. So as long as unless Brian's able to get some of those cards out of his hand, Joe pretty much has everything he needs to be successful very quickly with this particular game. Would be nice probably to see one more upgrade, whether it be Maul Saber, or that other ID9 on him. Seventh Sister already taking on, oh wow, we got multiple Sith Holocrons and a Vibra Knife on the field. Hoping to get some Force abilities out on the table for free, which would always be nice. Sith Holocron comes in waves. We see it often in some of these villain decks, and sometimes we don't see it often enough. Price of Failure and the ID9 were just discarded from Joe's hand, so it's going to slow Joe down quite a bit.
Nice trick. Let's try spinning.
Using Nightstister's ability to go ahead and reroll that Ancient Saber into something slightly more favorable, but he still needs to roll into or re-roll into a melee damage somewhere, which would have to come from the Seventh Sister die at this point in time. He does have a focus on the ID9, so he could focus into one. Not ideal in terms of maximum damage output, but maybe the best option he has at the moment, especially since the one card he's sitting on is likely leadership at this point in time. Joe has no problems using the Nightsister's ability to use it to re-roll his own die. It's not something we see a whole lot of by a lot of players, but something we see Joe has used that ability for quite some time. Brian Sith Holocroning into Force Lightning. Paying the 1 to roll it in. Got the special on the Force Lightning, which he can use to remove Talzin's blank die, should he so choose, and re-roll back into his pool or his own blank die. Of course, he also has the Tarkin's power action ability, can remove those 2 blanks that are on the table on his side to gain 4 indirect damage. Joe is reminding Brian of the ability to special chain, which is a nice friendly thing to do. He didn't have to do that. He cannot special chain a reroll die, of course. It did not look like Brian had any other force abilities in his hand, so he could not use the other Sith Holocron with that particular special chain. But it was nice on Joe's part to allow that to happen instead of just letting it pass. Joe rolled exactly what he wanted to see on the Seventh Sister die, so now he's sitting on 5 melee damage. I'm sure he's hoping to draw into Price of Failure to get rid of that Nightstister and get an extra activation out of 7th. You can see Seventh Sister has already been leadershiped via Ciena, so leadership is not in his hand, so it must be most likely Aftermath. Nope, he got after. Oh gosh, what is it? What's left? If you remember what's left in Joe's hand, shout it out on the stream. All right, doing the 4 indirect damage, 2 in. Yeah. Four indirect damage done by removing those blanks. Always a great move. Using Nightstister's ability to re-roll the Force Lightning into a blank. You know, Nightstister's ability can sometimes be a double-edged sword, but Joe has always made use of it in such a way that he gets what he wants out of it. And that's pretty much the best roll that Brian could have hoped for, is to roll back into that special and then roll the blank on the Sith Holocron. Joe realizes he's got to roll in his Seventh Sister at this point in time, even though he was hoping to avoid the potential for Force Lightning to remove one of his die with a blank, and which he is going to go ahead and do kill Nightstister and remove that blank on 7th and roll back in and off the table. So let's roll again. Control your rolls, my friend. There we go. And he continues to do it. He continues to roll into a special. This round is very much going in Brian's favor. Tarkin's still sitting on one shield. Seventh Sister only hitting 4 damage so far. Nightstister is gone. Ciena now has 5 damage on her, and 7th is currently untouched. Joe has yet to place his Force Illusions and such down, so we know Joe has some more tricks to keep 7th Sister alive longer. Probably long enough to arm her up and get her reactivated, but if 7th goes the way of the dinosaur, or Ciena goes the way of the dinosaurs, then he loses that ability to leadership, and then Seventh Sister no longer can reactivate, which is really, the crux. Looks like he's going to put Aftermath down on the table, and then upkeep. Or he may have discarded Aftermath. Well, they were. Joe, I can only see one resource on Joe's end. Joe's sitting on, he's got a Maul Saber there, so that's really going to help him. Trust your instincts, reroll the die, draw, and draw a card. This would be a great time to draw into another leadership. Do not think he did. Oh, he does have a leadership in his hand, though. Which he will want to use before Ciena bites the dust. It's the one melee Force Illusion. The Tarkin, or the Seventh Sister Force Illusion, keeping her alive. Joe's got some great options. Of course, the downside is once Seventh Sister on Brian's side goes down, there is not much left for Tarkin. Of course, Joe's going to pull off that leadership as quickly as he can because, now Ciena's gone, and it is nothing but Seventh Sister with an Ancient Saber against Tarkin with no abilities and Seventh Sister, who is on its last leg. One more damage to Brian's Seventh Sister, and it is gone. Of course, at this point, all indirect damage is going to be direct damage straight to Seventh Sister. There's no other place for it to go. Joe getting that Maul Saber on the field. Taking the 4 damage from Tarkin's power action. The ability to remove those 2 blanks and turn them into 4 damage. That is enough damage showing on the field to get rid of Seventh Sister. I don't think there's anything that Brian can do unless he's got some sort of force misdirection in his hand. But even then, that wouldn't apply here. So he's going to do the 1 melee to 7th. And then Joe is going to get rid of 7th. And he chooses not to resolve any more melee damage. Looks like he Ancient Saber, Force Solution, Doubt. All in Joe's hand right now. Brian discarding to reroll, getting a blank on the Tarkin. Of course, he's hoping to get another 2 indirect, which would be great, but Tarkin's die is a little bit inconsistent in that indirect side, so that was definitely a 1 in 6 chance, and a bit of a risk, but he's got 3 more cards in his hand, and it may be his best way out. Well, it may look like Brian's got the upper hand here as he's facing down a well-powered Seventh Sister, which kind of mitigates for the difference in health at this point in time. The 7th can roll some pretty nasty stuff. Joe is still sitting on a card or 2 in hand. And what did we get? We roll into a focus. That's not exactly what Brian's hoping for. Joe's going to discard to re-roll here. Hoping for more melee, and he got 2 on the Maul Saber, blank on the Sister. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 total melee damage showing. That would definitely swing the tide of this game into his favor in terms of the health differential between the 2 characters. He's going to go ahead and do the 2 indirect. Joe's going to go ahead and do the 5. Tarkin did have a shield on him, so.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Good game.
And that is the end of this game. Joe taking another win here. Still the undefeated player here at this event. Brian a great showing with his Seven Sister Tarkin deck, a deck that has seen a couple. There are 2 of those decks in the top 8. Joe B at table 4 or at the 4th seed is also playing an eTarkin, Elite Seventh Sister deck. So we'll be seeing more from Joe, it seems, as we continue on through this event, and more from this variation on the OTK Seventh Sister.